I was in the back of an Uber last Tuesday, heading to the airport for a flight that got delayed 3 times, so I was already in that weird mental space where you're not fully present, but you're too anxious to zone out completely. The driver was a woman, probably in her early 50s, with gray streaks in her hair and a voice that sounded like she'd smoked maybe 3 cigarettes in her 20s and never quite lost the texture. About 10 minutes into the ride, she looked at me in the rearview mirror and said, "You have the look of someone who studies people." I asked her what she meant. She said, "I've been driving for 8 years. I've had maybe 12,000 people in this car. Couples, mostly. And I've learned something that most therapists probably charge $200 an hour to figure out. I can tell in 30 seconds whether a couple is going to last. Not by what they say, by what they don't say." I leaned forward. I told her I was genuinely interested. She laughed and said, "The ones who last?" The woman gets in the car, and the man doesn't immediately try to manage her. He doesn't ask if she has her phone. He doesn't tell her to buckle up like she's a child. He just settles in, and there's this space between them. It's not loud, it's not performative, but it's real. The ones who are falling apart? The man is either completely silent, treating her like a stranger, or he's performing husband, asking her a million questions she doesn't want to answer, making decisions for her, talking over her when I ask where we're going. He's stuck in 2010, and she knows it. She can feel it, and she's exhausted. That 30-minute ride became one of the most important conversations I've ever had. Because she wasn't talking about Uber rides. She was talking about the shift that has happened in the last 15 years. The shift that most men missed because no one sent a memo. The shift from what women needed in 2010 to what women actually need in 2026. And today, I want to walk you through that shift. 5 things that women actually want from men right now. Not what they wanted when we were growing up. Not what our fathers told us. Not what the dating coaches were selling in 2015. What they want today, in this year, in this moment. And if you're still operating on the 2010 playbook, you're not just behind, you're invisible. So get comfortable. Let's talk about what she's actually looking for. If you're finding real value in these conversations, hit subscribe and turn on the notifications. I'm building something here for men who want to understand women in a way that actually works in the real world, not in some outdated manual. Next week, I'm going deep into the specific habits that make her feel emotionally safe enough to fully open up to you. You don't want to miss that one. The first thing, she wants emotional reliability, not just financial reliability. In 2010, the dominant narrative was that women wanted security. And security meant money. It meant a good job, a stable income, a house, a car, the ability to provide. And look, I'm not saying those things don't matter. They do. But in 2026, financial reliability is baseline. It's table stakes. It's the minimum requirement to even sit at the table. What she actually wants now is emotional reliability. She wants to know that your character is stable, that your mood isn't going to swing based on your workday, that you're not going to be charming and present on Saturday and distant and cold on Tuesday because you're stressed. She wants a man whose emotional temperature she can predict, not because he's boring, but because he's consistent. In 2010, men were taught to be providers. In 2026, women are providers too. They have their own money, their own careers, their own stability. What they don't have is emotional consistency from the men they date. They don't have men who show up the same way regardless of circumstances. I've talked to women who earn 6 figures, who own their homes, who have their lives completely together, and they tell me the same thing. I don't need his money, I need his calm. I need to know that when my world is chaotic, he's not adding to the chaos, that he's a place I can land. The man who provides emotional reliability in 2026 is doing something far more valuable than the man who just brings home a paycheck, because she's already handling the paycheck. She's handling the bills. She's handling the logistics. What she's not handling is the exhaustion of being with a man whose emotions are a roller coaster. A man who is sweet when he wants something and distant when he doesn't. A man who is confident on date 3 and insecure by date 10. That inconsistency is what makes her leave in 2026, not the lack of money, the lack of emotional safety. The second thing, she wants your presence, not your performance. In 2010, men were taught to perform, to be the alpha, to be the life of the party, to have the best stories, the sharpest jokes, the most impressive resume. The dating advice was all about peacocking, about standing out, about being the most dominant man in the room. And in 2010, that worked. Because women were still navigating a world where they needed men to be the external force, the protector, the initiator, the showman. But in 2026, women are tired of performances. They've seen every version of the performance. They've dated the guy with the perfect Instagram. They've dated the guy with the amazing job title. They've dated the guy who can charm any room. And they've learned that performance doesn't translate to partnership. What they want now is presence. A man who is actually there when he's there. Not mentally scrolling through his phone. Not rehearsing what he's going to say next. Not calculating how to impress her. Just present. Looking at her. Listening to her. Responding to what's actually happening in the moment instead of running his internal script. I was talking to a woman last month who told me she ended a 6-month relationship with a man who was, by every external metric, perfect. Good-looking, successful, funny, socially connected. She said, "But I never felt like he was actually with me. He was always performing boyfriend, always saying the right thing, doing the right thing, but never actually being there. It felt like I was dating a character, not a person." That's the shift. In 2010, she wanted the character. In 2026, she wants the person. She wants the man who can sit in silence with her without needing to fill it. The man who can listen to her bad day without turning it into a problem-solving session. The man who can be with her without needing to be impressive. That presence is rare now, because everyone is performing. Everyone is curating. Everyone is trying to be the best version of themselves. And the man who stops trying and just is, that man becomes unforgettable. Let me pause here and ask you something real. When was the last time you were with a woman and you weren't trying to impress her at all? Drop the word present in the comments if you're starting to understand what that means. I want to know who's really hearing this. The third thing, she wants shared emotional labor, not just protection. In 2010, the model was simple. Men protected, women nurtured. Men handled the external world, women handled the internal world. Men fought the battles, women maintained the home. But in 2026, women are fighting battles too. They're in the external world all day. They're dealing with bosses, clients, deadlines, traffic, finances, politics, stress. And when they come home, they're not just tired. They're carrying the same emotional load men are carrying. But here's what most men are still doing. They're still operating on the 2010 model where they think their job is to protect her from the world, but they don't realize that their job is also to notice the world inside the home. The emotional labor of remembering birthdays, planning dinners, noticing when the toilet paper is out, anticipating what the kids need, managing the social calendar, maintaining the emotional temperature of the relationship. In 2010, women did this silently, and men didn't notice. In 2026, women are done doing it silently. They want a man who sees the invisible workload, who notices that the laundry is piling up before she mentions it, who remembers that her sister's birthday is next week, who texts her in the middle of the day not because he wants something, but because he knows she's in a stressful meeting, who says, "You look tired, let me handle dinner tonight," before she has to ask. This isn't about being a doormat. This isn't about being subservient. This is about being a partner. In 2026, a woman doesn't want a protector who comes home and sits on the couch while she manages everything else. She wants a teammate who sees the whole field, not just his own position. She wants a man who understands that emotional labor is real labor, and that carrying half of it is more attractive than carrying all of the external protection. Because she's already protecting herself. She's already handling the world. What she can't handle anymore is being the only one who sees what needs to be done. The fourth thing, she wants your vulnerability, not just your strength. In 2010, men were taught to be strong. Don't cry. Don't show weakness. Don't let her see you sweat. Be the rock. Be the unmovable force. And yes, strength matters. But in 2026, women have seen that movie. They've dated the strong, silent type. They've dated the man who never shows emotion. They've dated the guy who handles everything without asking for help. And they've learned that strength without vulnerability is just a wall. It's not a connection. It's a barrier. What women want in 2026 is a man who is strong enough to be vulnerable, who can say, "I'm scared about this," who can say, "I don't know what to do," who can say, "I need you," not in a needy, dependent way, but in a human way, in a way that says, "I trust you enough to let you see the parts of me that aren't perfect." Because here's the truth. When a man is only strong, a woman feels like she's with a statue. She admires him, but she can't connect with him. She can't reach him. She can't comfort him because he won't admit he needs comfort. She can't support him because he won't admit he's struggling. But when a man shows vulnerability, when he lets her see his doubts, his fears, his insecurities, he becomes reachable. He becomes real. And that realness is what creates intimacy, not the performance of strength, the integration of strength and softness. The man who can hold her when she's crying and then cry in front of her when he needs to. That man is rare in 2026. Because most men are still stuck in 2010, thinking that vulnerability is weakness. But women in 2026 know that vulnerability is the ultimate strength, because it takes more courage to be seen than to be strong. The fifth thing, and this is the strongest one, she wants evolutionary partnership, not static stability. In 2010, the goal was to arrive, get the job, get the house, get the girl, and then maintain. Keep things stable. Don't rock the boat. Protect what you have. But in 2026, women are evolving rapidly. They're growing. They're changing. They're questioning old patterns. They're doing therapy. They're reading books. They're becoming new versions of themselves. And what they want is a man who is evolving alongside them, not a man who arrived at 30 and stopped. Not a man who says, "This is who I am, take it or leave it." Not a man who is terrified of change because change threatens his stability. They want a man who is curious about himself, who is willing to look at his own patterns, who is willing to admit when he's wrong, who is willing to learn new ways of communicating, who is willing to grow out of his old habits. The woman in 2026 doesn't want a finished product. She wants a work in progress. She wants a man who says, "I want to be better next year than I am today," and then actually does the work. Because here's what happens when a man stops evolving. The woman outgrows him, slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. She keeps growing, and he stays the same. And one day she looks across the dinner table and realizes she's living with a version of him that she already passed years ago. And that's when she leaves. Not because he's a bad man, but because he's a static man. In a world where she is moving forward, static feels like going backward. The man who becomes impossible to leave in 2026 is the man who is still becoming, who is still learning, who is still open, who treats the relationship as a living thing that needs to grow, not a trophy that needs to be protected. So there you have it. 5 things women actually want from men in 2026. Emotional reliability instead of just financial stability. Presence instead of performance. Shared emotional labor instead of just protection. Vulnerability integrated with strength instead of strength alone. And evolutionary partnership instead of static stability. If you're still operating on the 2010 playbook, I get it. That was the model most of us were taught. That was the script we were given. But that script is outdated. The women you're meeting today, the women you're dating today, the women you're trying to build something with today, they are not the same women from 2010. They have different needs, they have different expectations, and they have different standards. Not because they're demanding or difficult, but because they've grown. And the question is, have you grown with them? Or are you still trying to impress them with the same tricks that stopped working years ago? If this conversation opened your eyes, hit that like button so more men who need this can find it. Subscribe and turn on the bell if you want to keep going deeper on understanding women, building real connection, and becoming the kind of man who belongs in 2026, not 2010. Drop a comment below with the number of the shift that hit you the hardest. And if you know a guy who is still stuck in the old playbook, send this to him. Not because he's failing, but because he deserves to know the rules have changed. Until the next time we talk, stay calm, stay present, and keep evolving. This is Mind of Connection. I'll see you soon.